Hi there, interior design lovers. Welcome back to the Business of Beautiful Spaces, the podcast where we blend design inspiration with all behind the scenes tips and tricks you need to thrive in your business. I'm your host, Laura Thornton, and with over 27 years in this interior design game and running a 7-figure design company, trust me, I've seen it all. I want to be your interior design bestie. I want to help you build the business of your dreams, make more money, and yes, ditch the stress along the way. I've been doing this for a long time, and now I'm sharing my knowledge with all of you, my fellow designers and decorators. All I ask in return is that you like, review, and follow this podcast wherever you listen, so other designers can find us and learn more too. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into making 2025 your best business year yet. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Business of Beautiful Spaces. I'm your host, Laura Thornton, founder of Thornton Design and the creator of the Profit Academy for Interior Designers and the host of this, the Business of Beautiful Spaces. So whether you're tuning in while driving or you are site visiting us on YouTube, curled up with a coffee and a notebook, I'm super glad you're here. I'm especially excited today because we are going to kick off a brand new 4-part series all about being profitable in your design business. This is strategies for building a profitable interior design business. So each week, I'm going to break down one essential strategy that will help you grow, gain confidence, and finally make your business as beautiful on the inside as it looks on the outside on your Instagram feed. So if you're ready to level up, stay with me because the next 4 episodes are going to be for you. Now, I have to tell you, this topic is personal for me because for years, I thought that making beautiful rooms was enough. And I thought if I pour my heart into my work, the money will flow to me. And that's not exactly how it works. And I literally learned the hard way, and I still love design, but it's not the same as running a profitable design business. And that's what this episode is all about. You have to know your numbers so that you can make decisions with clarity and with confidence. So before we dive in, I'd love for you to take a second at the end of this episode and leave me a 5-star review if you can, or whatever you think that this is worth, because your feedback helps me reach more designers like you. And tell me what resonates with you. I would love to feature all of this on future episodes. So anyway, let's jump in. Okay, the wake-up call. So I'll never forget the moment I realized something had to change. I had completed a stunning project, a renovation with finishes and furnishings that made my heart sing. And the reveal was magical. The clients were happy. They were so proud. I was proud right down until I decided I needed to do the numbers after the project was done. I stared at the spreadsheets and realized I basically didn't have any profit. I'd been so focused on delighting my clients and making the home perfect for them, thinking that I'll do this one this way, and it's okay that I'm not making that much money on this item because it's perfect. It'll be great for the photos, that I really forgot to take care of myself and my business. And that is when I realized that my business is only healthy if the numbers behind it are as well. And I needed to know with certainty that the work that I loved was going to actually produce a profit because I was taking time away from my home and my family and my children to do this work. And then I wasn't able to even cover my bills, the gas, the kilometers, the oil change, the tire changes, the time that I had spent away paying for daycare for my youngest, all of these things that at the end of the month when I went to go reconcile and I thought I was making about $5,000 on this really great project, there was actually $0 left. By the time the HST, by the time I paid gas, by the time I drove around to multiple different places to find the right fabrics and the tiles and the hours, and basically I paid out of my own pocket to have this beautiful space for a client of mine, and that needed to stop. So we have to start with the basics because I promise once you get comfortable here, everything gets easier. And what that means is you really need to get comfortable with accounting. You need to understand the difference between revenue, profit, costs, fixed costs, variable costs. These are the things that you need to know. And you're probably rolling your eyes because some of you will know and you'll know them inside and out, and that is great. And some people don't because they want to bury their head in the sand when it comes to accounting, and you can't do it. I promise you, the more you get comfortable with it, the more it'll become a tool that you use in so many places in your business. And those are going to get covered in the next 4 weeks of this series. So revenue. It is all the money that's coming in. What your clients pay you for design fees, products, procurement, project management, any commission checks. That's all the money that comes in. It's a really fabulous number and you wish it would stay there. You wish that was your profit, but it is not. Profit is what is left over after everything else you paid, your team, your vendors, your rent, your gas, your subscriptions to seats on your, whether it's AutoCAD or some type of Trello or whatever you use to run your business needs to come out of the revenue, and what's left over is actually your profit. So that's an important term, profit, because we're going to dive deeper into that because there's two different ways to calculate profits in your business as well, but we're going to get to that. Fixed cost. There are things in your business that are fixed. Usually it's your cell phone. Usually it's your insurance. It's your car payment. It would be your rent. It would be expenses that do not change very often. It stays pretty consistent in your business. And then there's variable costs, and that can fluctuate. That's the cost, things like what it took us to ship a sofa from the US to Canada versus local, or an extra team you hired for a big install. Sometimes I drive around a lot more than I do other months, and so my gas consumption is higher. So things that vary. Now, here is a really practical exercise. I want you to go through your last 3 projects. Where did all the money go? What did you really make? Not at the beginning when you calculated what it was going to be, because there's always changes on the job site, something that costs more, something that needs to change. You had to run out to the Home Depot and tackle something. What did it really cost you? And what did you really make? Now, when you do this regularly, you're going to start to see patterns. You're going to see the good patterns and you're going to see the bad patterns. But let me tell you, one year I discovered I've been paying for trade software subscription that I hadn't used in nearly 9 months. I was losing hundreds of dollars a year simply by not checking. So don't let all these little hidden things cost you and basically steal your profits, because that was just one item that I found that was costing me money that I wasn't using. And there's multiples of that. Small things that add up, like I was paying $750 a year for a Visa card that gave me all these travel perks. Well, we weren't traveling during COVID, and I was still paying $750 a year for this card. So things like that, just make sure that you are checking and you are knowing what you're paying for. Now, if you really want to dive deep into the weeds, and this is what I would highly recommend for anybody and everybody who's running a business, you should know exactly what it costs you every month to run your business. If we were in a room right now, I would ask you how many people know this number. And I did ask at an event recently in the spring, and there was probably 50 designers in the room and 3 people raised their hand. So this is something that everyone should know. Right now, I'm recording this in July. You might hear this in August or September. You have current data from January until July or August, let's say, whatever month you're listening. You need to go back and get every bank statement and look at all the checks you've written from January until now and see what it costs your company to run for the last 6 months. It's very easy to multiply that by 2 to see what it will cost you a year. It's also very easy to divide that by 6 to see what that is monthly. Don't get too overwhelmed by the year. When I sit down and do this every January, I sit down and do my year so I can figure out backwards. I reverse engineer how many projects I need to do to get to where I need to be, which again, we're going to tackle in the future. I definitely hate the big number for the year. It makes my stomach curdle. It makes me feel overwhelmed. And so I don't look at that number. I break it down into months. And so I know that every month I have a goal to hit in order to cover my expenses for that month. And the goal is not just to meet that. The goal is to obviously make money on that and to go beyond that. And there are going to be months where you don't hit that. And then there's going to be other months where you're doubling what you need. And that's how you get this balance. But if you have a goal that you know is going to need to be hit every month to cover your expenses before going in the red, you're going to work harder. You're going to work towards that goal. And so this is something I highly recommend for everybody. So you know what that number is for the year, and then divide it by 12 so it's less overwhelming, and work towards that as a whole. If that means to get to that number, you need to do X amount of paid consultations, or I need to have 3 jobs of a full living room, or I need to have 1 full house reno, you can start figuring out where you need to be able to make those numbers work. And again, that's not revenue numbers. Those are profit numbers. All right. So here is where most designers trip up. You're confusing the difference between markup and profit margin. So there's a difference between markup profit versus profit margin. And I see this all the time in the Profit Academy. And honestly, I did it for myself, wrong for years. And it's not wrong. I shouldn't say wrong, but I was really leaving a lot of money on the table. So I want to break it down with a real world example for you. Suppose you buy furniture from a vendor for $70,000 and then you sell it to your client for $100,000. The markup is how much more you charged over the cost. So in this case, $100,000 minus $70,000, right? is going to be divided by 70,000 because you're at 30,000. So 30,000 divided by 70,000, 43% markup. Now, margin is how much of the selling price is actually yours to keep. So in this case, $100,000 subtract $70,000, and you're dividing that. So $30,000 divided by 100,000 is 30,000 profit margin. So there is a differential when you are doing your math on your markup versus profit margin. So many designers think if they mark up 40%, that they are making 40% margin, but that's not true. If you want a 40% margin, you actually need to mark up your cost by 67%. That's a huge difference. If you are quoting based on margin instead of markup, you're losing thousands of dollars every year. So never forget, I'll never forget a designer who came up to me and said, I don't understand. I'm marking up every item, but my bank account never seems to grow. And when we crunched her numbers, I realized she was confusing margin with markup on every single proposal. So she thought that her margins across the board were 30%, and they weren't. She was closer to 20. And it wasn't covering her bill. So she wasn't making enough money to cover everything she needed to cover. And she was literally leaving profit on the table. So making profit has to be part of your plan. And here's the truth. Profit isn't what's left over. That's what you plan for. You need to know your numbers. You need to set your goals, and then you need to stick to them. You cannot waffle and think, oh, this client here, and I'll make up for this client over there. We can't do that. Every time you quote a project, you need to check your margins. Every month, you need to review your expenses. And every quarter, set time aside to ask, where did I make money? Where did I lose money? And how can I improve this in the next quarter? So we're not making the same mistakes. And we're finding out where we made more money, and we're going to focus our attention over there. This is a habit that you build. And as your business builds, it lets you do more of what you love without burnout or consistent worry, because you know you've handled everything that's moving out of your business with a markup and you're covered. So here's your homework for this week. I need you to pull up your last 3 projects. Did you use margin or markup? Do the math and see what your real profit is. I want you to block 20 minutes on your calendar this week to review any subscriptions and reoccurring expenses that are showing up on your Visa or your MasterCard or your Amex, and whether that's an Apple charge for, I had 3 Apple charges and wasn't realizing I was duplicating extra storage on phones. Things that seem little but will add up. Cancel what you don't need. Make a phone call to your provider of your cell phone and see if there's a better price point for what you're getting. When's the last time you called to negotiate your insurance? These are things that will make big differences in your business at the end of the year. And if you really want to dive deep, pull up the last 6 months, January to the end of June, and see what your business has been costing you and figure out what it runs your business every month. And hey, if you have questions or you want to share a big aha moment, please feel free to email me, DM me on Instagram. Anything, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear the aha moments because we all have them when we start diving into our business. And if this episode gave you any perspective, I would be so grateful if you could maybe run over to Apple or podcast, anywhere you listen to this, and give us a review so that we can reach out to more designers. We have over 3,000 listeners every week, but only 500 of you follow the show. So I would love to know what it's going to take to get you to go over there, follow us, and to share so that more designers can find this podcast and learn more about how to dive deep into their business. So don't forget, this is the first episode. This is just the smallest chunk. This is just the tip of the iceberg, literally, in our 4-part series. So stay tuned for part 2 next week, where we are going to dive into another secret weapon for profitability. It's going to be all about tracking your time and why it matters, even for flat fee projects. So until then, design beautifully and build confidently.